Commander Veltar stood in the central command chamber of the Galactic Council's primary monitoring station, watching his officers work with growing unease. The blue-skinned Altarian had seen many distress calls in his 40 years of service, but nothing like what was happening now. The signal had arrived 3 hours ago, cutting through the normal space-time communications like a knife through silk. It came from the Zephyrian research station orbiting Caleth 9, a neutron star located in the Outer Rim territories. The Zephyrians were not the type to panic. They were beings of pure energy who could manipulate space and time itself. Their technology was so advanced that most galactic civilizations considered them almost godlike. "Sir, we are still getting fragments," reported Lieutenant Kesra, her tentacles dancing over the holographic controls. "The signal keeps breaking up, but we have managed to piece together some words." Veltar moved closer to the communications array. The main screen showed a weak signal pattern, flickering in and out of existence. Every few seconds, broken words emerged from the static. "Help. They came from beyond the rim, consuming everything. Matter conversion. We cannot stop. The Devourers." Then silence. "Play it again," Veltar ordered. The message repeated, but this time there were new fragments. "Station failing. They learn too fast. Adaptation impossible. Warn the galaxy. They are coming." A chill ran down Veltar's spine. The Zephyrians were beings who existed partly outside normal space-time. If something could overwhelm them this completely, what chance did anyone else have? "Sir," called Engineer Mortek from his position at the sensor array, "I am detecting massive energy readings from the Caleth 9 system. The neutron star itself appears to be changing." Veltar turned to look at the long-range sensors. What he saw made his blood freeze. The neutron star, which should have been spinning with perfect regularity, was slowing down. Its magnetic field was weakening. Something was draining its energy. "How is that possible?" he whispered. "Unknown, sir. But if the readings are correct, something is converting the star's matter into energy at an incredible rate. The entire system appears to be under some kind of processing." Veltar stared at the data. He had read the classified reports about theoretical threats to galactic civilization. There were whispers of ancient machines from before recorded history, constructs that consumed entire star systems for fuel. But those were just stories told to frighten young officers. "Sir, incoming transmission from the council chambers," announced communications officer Yeldin. The holographic display shifted to show the council's emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species filled the circular chamber, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of sound, light, and pheromone signals. "Commander Veltar," spoke Councillor Threnka, the elderly Centaurian who served as the current council speaker. "We have received reports of the Zephyrian distress call. What is your assessment?" Veltar took a deep breath. "Councillor, based on the fragmentary communications and sensor data, I believe we are facing an extinction-level threat. Something has attacked the Zephyrian station with enough force to overwhelm their defenses completely. The neutron star Caleth 9 is being systematically drained of energy." A wave of agitation swept through the council chamber. Representatives began speaking at once, their words overlapping in dozens of languages. "Order! Order!" Threnka called out. "Commander, what do you recommend?" This was the moment Veltar had been dreading. He knew what needed to be done, but he also knew how the council would react. "Councillor, I recommend we immediately contact the Deathworlder Alliance and request their assistance." The chamber fell silent. Even the universal translators seemed to pause in confusion. Councillor Brixtal, the insectoid representative from the Hive Worlds, was the first to respond. "Commander, surely you are not serious. The humans and their barbaric allies are barely civilized. They solve every problem with violence and destruction." "With respect, Councillor," Veltar replied, "violence and destruction may be exactly what we need. The Zephyrians represent the pinnacle of peaceful technological advancement, and they have been overwhelmed in a matter of hours. Whatever we are facing, conventional methods will not work." Councillor Rendai from the Crystal Garden spoke next, her voice like singing wind chimes. "The humans and their alliance partners are dangerous, Commander. They come from worlds that would kill most of us within minutes. Their entire culture is built around survival through aggression." "Yes," Veltar said quietly, "and that may be our only hope." The debate that followed was heated and chaotic. Some council members argued for sending the standard fleet to investigate. Others suggested trying to negotiate with whatever force had attacked the Zephyrians. A few even proposed evacuating the outer rim entirely and hoping the threat would not spread. But Veltar had seen the data. He had heard the fear in the Zephyrian transmission. These were beings who could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe, and they had been consumed in hours. No conventional fleet would survive contact with whatever was out there. Finally, Councillor Threnka called for order once more. Commander Veltar, you have served this council with distinction for 4 decades. Your judgment has never failed us. But what you are asking? The political consequences alone. Councillor, Veltar interrupted. With respect, there may not be any politics left to worry about if we do not act immediately. The Zephyrian message mentioned that whatever attacked them is heading toward the galaxy's core. That means it is coming for all of us. The chamber fell silent again. On the main screen, the sensor data continued to show the impossible sight of a neutron star being slowly consumed. Very well, Threnka said finally. You have the Council's authorization to contact the human government and request assistance from their Deathworlder alliance. May the ancestors help us all. As the Council session ended, Veltar turned back to his communications officer. Yeldon, open a priority channel to Earth. Use the emergency diplomatic frequency. Sir, that channel has never been used before. I know. Let us hope the humans are willing to answer. As they waited for the connection to establish, Veltar looked out at the stars visible through the station's viewing port. Somewhere out there, something was consuming entire worlds. The most advanced civilization in the galaxy had fallen in hours. Their only hope now lay with the galaxy's most violent and unpredictable species. He just hoped the cure would not prove worse than the disease. The communication array chimed, indicating an incoming response from Earth. Veltar straightened his uniform and prepared to ask humanity for help. The irony was not lost on him. The Council had spent centuries trying to civilize the humans and their Deathworlder allies. Now their barbaric nature might be the galaxy's salvation. Commander, Yeldon announced, we have a connection. The main screen flickered, and suddenly Veltar was looking at a human face. The being appeared middle-aged by human standards with gray hair and stern eyes. Military insignia marked him as a high-ranking officer. This is Admiral Harrison of the United Earth Defense Force, the human said. We received your emergency signal. What can we do for you, Commander? Veltar took a deep breath. Admiral, we need your help. Something is destroying entire star systems, and we believe it is heading for the galactic core. The Zephyrians have been overwhelmed completely. The human's expression did not change, but Veltar could see something shift in his eyes, a coldness that spoke of long experience with impossible odds. How much time do we have? Admiral Harrison asked. Unknown, but based on the rate of advance, possibly weeks before it reaches the inner systems. The human nodded slowly. We will mobilize immediately. Expect our fleet within 72 hours. The connection ended, leaving Veltar staring at a blank screen. He had just invited the galaxy's most dangerous predators to war. He could only hope he had not doomed them all in the process. Outside the viewing port, the stars continued to shine, unaware that somewhere in the darkness, an ancient hunger was awakening. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UED dreadnought Indomitable, watching the tactical display with calm intensity. The massive ship hung in space near the Luna orbital shipyards, where humanity's most powerful warships were being prepared for what might be their final battle. Admiral, incoming priority transmission from Admiral Harrison, reported Communications Officer Torres. Put it through, Chen ordered. Harrison's weathered face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, she could see the chaos of Earth's military command center, with officers from dozens of different services coordinating the largest mobilization in human history. Sarah, I have just finished speaking with the Galactic Council. The situation is worse than we initially thought, Chen nodded. She had read the preliminary reports during her flight from the Titan defense stations. The Zephyrians were gone, an entire civilization that had existed for millions of years wiped out in a matter of hours. What do we know about the enemy? She asked. Not much. The Council is calling them Devourers, but that is just based on fragments from the Zephyrian distress call. What we do know is that they came from outside the galaxy, and they appear to be converting matter directly into energy. They consumed a neutron star, Sarah. An entire neutron star. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. She had spent 30 years fighting in humanity's wars, from the Martian independence conflict to the recent border skirmishes with the Centaurian Trade Federation. But this was something beyond conventional warfare. What about the other Council species? Are they mobilizing their fleets? Harrison's expression darkened. The Altarians are sending 300 ships. The Centaurians have promised 500. The Crystal Gardens are contributing their defensive platforms. In total, maybe 2,000 vessels. That is not going to be enough. No, it is not. Which is why I'm authorizing you to activate the Deathworlder Emergency Protocol. Chen paused. The Deathworlder Emergency Protocol had been established 50 years ago, after humanity's first contact with the other species of the Galactic Rim. It was designed for one purpose: to unite all the worlds that the civilized galaxy considered too dangerous for normal contact. All of them? She asked. All of them. Send the call to every world in our alliance network. We need every ship, every weapon, every warrior who is willing to fight. Chen turned to her communications officer. Torres, transmit the emergency protocol signal on all Deathworlder frequencies. Priority Alpha. As the signal went out, Chen walked to the observation deck. Through the reinforced viewing port, she could see ships arriving from across human space. The massive battleship Texas, armed with weapons that violated 3 different galactic treaties. The stealth destroyer Shanghai, whose crew specialized in impossible missions. The heavy cruiser Mumbai, which had survived the siege of Europa Station against odds of 10,000 to 1. But they would need more than human ships for this fight. The first response came within an hour. Captain Thrixka of the Krill Defense Fleet acknowledged the signal from his homeworld in the Methane Nebula. The Krill were beings who breathed methane and could survive in environments that would kill most other species in seconds. Their ships were powered by chemical reactions, so violent that other civilizations considered them barely controlled explosions. Next came the Shard Singers from the crystal caverns of Tau Ceti. Their ships were living crystals that could resonate at frequencies capable of shattering enemy hulls from the inside out. The Galactic Council had banned their technology after a demonstration accidentally destroyed a small moon. The Vexi responded from their hive worlds beyond the Galactic Rim. They were a collective consciousness that shared memories across their entire species. To them, individual death was meaningless, which made them incredibly dangerous in battle. Their ships were biological constructs grown rather than built, capable of self-repair and adaptation. More responses poured in over the following hours. The stone-bodied granite guard from high-gravity worlds where the surface pressure could crush normal beings. The plasma-breathing stellar nomads who lived in the hearts of dying stars. The shadow dwellers from dark matter dimensions whose very existence violated most species' understanding of physics. Admiral, Torres called out, we are receiving a transmission from the Void Hunters. Chen raised an eyebrow. The Void Hunters were perhaps the most dangerous of all the Deathworlder species. They lived in the empty spaces between galaxies, feeding on dark energy and hunting creatures that existed in dimensions other species could not even perceive. Put them through. The screen filled with darkness, then slowly resolved into a shape that hurt to look at directly. The Void Hunter spoke in a voice like the death of stars. Human Admiral Chen, we have heard your call. The Devourers are known to us. They consumed our birth galaxy 3 million of your years ago. We have been hunting them ever since. Chen felt the blood drain from her face. They destroyed an entire galaxy? They are a harvest protocol, created by a species that died before your son was born. They believe organic life is inefficient. They convert all matter into ordered patterns. We escaped because we exist partially outside normal space-time, but we have seen thousands of civilizations fall to their hunger. How do we fight them? The Void Hunter paused. When it spoke again, there was something that might have been amusement in its voice. You do not fight them, Human Admiral. You are too small, too brief. But perhaps you can do what we cannot. You can be unpredictable. The transmission ended, leaving Chen staring at a blank screen. Over the next 2 days, the fleet continued to grow. Ships arrived from every corner of the Galactic Rim and beyond. Vessels that looked like they had been welded together in the heat of battle. Living ships that pulsed with their own heartbeats. Machines that seemed to exist in more dimensions than should be possible. By the time the fleet was assembled, it numbered over 10,000 ships. But they were not like the orderly formations of the Council fleets. This was chaos given form, violence waiting to be unleashed. Chen stood in the command center of the Indomitable, looking at the tactical display. Each ship was represented by a different symbol, and many of those symbols hurt to look at for too long. "Admiral," reported Intelligence Officer Kim, "we have received long-range sensor data from the Council Scouts. The enemy has consumed 4 more star systems since the Zephyrian attack. They are moving toward the galactic core at approximately 1 light-year per day. What are we looking at exactly?" Kim highlighted a section of the tactical display. Geometric constructs the size of small moons. They appear to be made of some kind of dark matter composite. They move in perfect formation and emit no energy signatures except when they are actively consuming matter. "How many?" "Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. And Admiral, they are learning." Chen looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "The Council sent 3 scout fleets to observe them. Each fleet that made contact was destroyed more quickly than the last. The enemy appears to be adapting to our weapons and tactics in real time." Chen studied the data. Perfect formations, adaptive learning, efficient consumption of matter. It sounded almost like, "They are machines," she said quietly. "That is our assessment as well, but not like any AI we have encountered. These things think in ways that follow pure logic. They optimize everything." Chen smiled grimly. "Then we will have to show them something they cannot optimize." She turned to address the bridge crew. "All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. Set course for the Kaleth 9 system. We are going to see what these devourers are made of." As the massive fleet prepared to jump, Chen felt a familiar sensation in her stomach. It was the feeling she always got before a battle that would change everything. The feeling that said this time, everything they knew about warfare was about to become useless. The Deathworlder fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind empty space and the fading glow of their engines. They were heading toward an enemy that had destroyed civilizations for millions of years. An enemy that learned from every encounter and optimized every strategy. But they were also carrying something the galaxy had never seen before. 10,000 ships crewed by beings who had survived in environments that should have been impossible. Warriors who had learned to thrive in chaos and make war out of impossibility. The Devourers had never encountered anything like humanity and its allies. They were about to learn that some problems could not be solved through logic and optimization. Some problems required a different kind of solution entirely. As the fleet traveled through hyperspace toward their destiny, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge and prepared to introduce the galaxy's most ancient enemy to its most unpredictable defenders. The war for the galaxy's survival was about to begin. The Deathworlder fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kaleth 9 system, and Admiral Chen immediately understood why the Zephyrians had sounded so terrified in their final transmission, where the neutron star should have been spinning. With its characteristic brilliant energy output, there was now something that defied comprehension. Massive geometric structures, each the size of Earth's moon, moved in perfect formation around the dying star. They were perfectly black, absorbing all light that touched them, visible only as shadows against the cosmic background. "Jesus Christ," whispered Navigator Rodriguez from his station. "What are those things?" "Target acquisition," Chen ordered, trying to keep her voice steady. "I want full spectrum analysis on those constructs." The tactical display lit up with data streams from thousands of ships. Each vessel in the Deathworlder fleet carried sensors designed for different physics, different dimensional perspectives. The readings that came back were inconsistent and disturbing. "Admiral," reported Science Officer Park, "the constructs appear to be made of some kind of organized dark matter. They exist partially outside normal space-time, which explains why our sensors are having difficulty getting consistent readings. What happened to the neutron star?" Park's face was pale as he read the data. According to these readings, they are converting its matter directly into energy and using that energy to power some kind of massive construction project. "Admiral, in the 3 days since the Zephyrian distress call, they have consumed approximately 30% of the star's mass." Chen stared at the display. A neutron star contained more matter than Earth's sun, compressed into a sphere barely 20 kilometers across. The amount of energy required to dismantle such an object was beyond calculation. "Admiral, incoming." "Transmission from the Krill flagship Methane Storm," announced Communications Officer Torres. Captain Thrixka's insectoid face appeared on screen, his compound eyes reflecting the light from his ship's chemical reactors. "Admiral Chen, My science pods are detecting something else. The constructs are not just consuming the star. They are building something. Chen switched the main display to show long-range sensor data. Deep in the system, beyond the orbiting constructs, something massive was taking shape. It was too large and too complex for her mind to fully process, but it appeared to be some kind of vessel or station. How big? She asked. Approximately the size of a small planet, Thrixka replied. And it is growing. Before Chen could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Admiral, called Weapons Officer Patel, we have incoming. Multiple contacts approaching at high speed. The tactical display filled with new symbols. Smaller constructs, each about the size of a human battleship, were emerging from behind the moon-sized structures. They moved with perfect coordination, like a flock of mechanical birds. All ships, battle stations, Chen ordered, prepare for engagement. The first wave of enemy drones reached the outer edge of the Deathworlder fleet within minutes. Chen watched the tactical display as her ships opened fire with everything they had. The human battleship Texas launched a EI'd barrage of antimatter torpedoes, each carrying enough explosive power to vaporize a small city. The weapon struck the lead drone and exploded in brilliant flashes of annihilation energy. When the light faded, the drone was still there, completely undamaged. What the hell? Muttered Weapons Officer Patel. Try the plasma cannons, Chen ordered. The Texas's main guns fired, sending streams of contained stellar fire toward the enemy formation. The plasma struck the drones and simply dissipated, as if it had hit some kind of perfect absorption field. Meanwhile, the krill ships were firing, their acid spitter weapons, projectiles that used chemical reactions so violent they could melt through ship hulls in seconds. The acid hit the enemy drones and simply evaporated on contact. Admiral, reported the Shard-Singer vessel Crystal Harmony. Our resonance weapons are having no effect. The enemy constructs are absorbing our sonic frequencies and converting them to energy. Chen watched in growing horror as wave after wave of attacks proved completely ineffective. The enemy drones continued their advance, moving closer to the fleet with mechanical precision. All ships, evasive maneuvers, she ordered. Do not let them get close. But it was already too late for some vessels. A squadron of Vex-High bioships tried to retreat, but the enemy drones moved faster than should have been possible. They caught up with the organic vessels and attached to them. Chen watched on the ear. Tactical display as the Vex-High ships simply stopped moving. Within seconds, their biosignatures began changing. The enemy was converting them, transforming living ships into more drones. Admiral, called Chief Engineer Martinez from the engine room, I am reading massive energy spikes from the enemy formation. They are adapting. What do you mean, adapting? Every weapon we fire at them, they analyze and develop countermeasures. They learn from each attack and become immune to it within minutes. Chen felt her blood turn to ice. An enemy that could adapt to any weapon, any tactic, any strategy. How could anyone fight something like that? Admiral Chen, came a transmission from the Void Hunter ship that existed mostly in dimensions she could not see. You are fighting them incorrectly. They are optimization protocols. They seek perfect solutions to all problems. Your weapons follow patterns they can analyze and counter. Then how do we fight them? You do not. You survive until you can learn to think differently. The enemy drones reached the main body of the fleet, and the real battle began. Chen watched, helplessly as her most powerful ships were overwhelmed. The human destroyer Shanghai tried to ram one of the drones, activating its self-destruct sequence at the moment of impact. The explosion was bright enough to be seen from orbit, but when the light faded, the enemy drone was not only intact, but had somehow grown larger. The enemy was learning to convert even explosive energy into raw material for construction. Admiral, reported Rodriguez, we are losing ships at an alarming rate. The enemy is adapting faster than we can develop new tactics. Chen stared at the tactical display. In the space of 1 hour, her fleet of 10,000 ships had been reduced to fewer than 8,000, and the enemy was barely scratched. She was about to order a general retreat when Chief Engineer Martinez called from the engine room. Admiral, I have an idea. It is crazy, but it might work. I am listening. The enemy machines are too perfect. They optimize everything, including their own responses to threats. They try to find the most efficient solution to every problem. So, what if we give them a problem that has no efficient solution? What if we attack them with something that makes no sense? Chen paused. It was insane. But at this point, insane might be their only option. What do you have in mind? Protocol insanity, Admiral. We stop trying to fight smart and start fighting stupid. We do things that make no tactical sense. We attack in ways that violate every principle of warfare. Chen looked at the tactical display again. The enemy drones were systematically destroying her fleet with machine-like efficiency. Each attack was perfectly calculated, each movement optimized for maximum effect. Maybe Martinez was right. Maybe. The key to fighting perfect efficiency was perfect chaos. All ships, she announced over the fleet-wide channel. This is Admiral Chen. We are implementing Protocol Insanity. I repeat, Protocol Insanity is now in effect. All tactical doctrine is hereby suspended. Fight dirty. Fight stupid. Fight in ways that make no sense. There was a moment of confusion across the fleet channels. Then the Krill Captain Thrixka's voice came through, filled with what sounded like laughter. Admiral Chen, my people have a saying. When logic fails, try madness. We are ready. The counterattack that followed was unlike anything in the history of galactic warfare. Human pilots began ramming their ships into enemy drones while screaming ancient war songs. Krill vessels flooded their own hulls with hallucinogenic gases and fought while experiencing shared nightmares. Shard Singer ships began playing music that had no tactical purpose but created patterns the enemy could not predict. And for the first time since the battle began, the enemy showed signs of confusion. The drones began to slow down, their perfect formations becoming less precise. They were trying to analyze attacks that followed no logical pattern, attempting to optimize responses to chaos itself. It is working, Martinez reported. The enemy is experiencing processing delays. They cannot adapt to strategies that have no strategy. But Chen knew this was only the beginning. They had found a weakness, but the enemy was vast and ancient. This battle was far from over. All ships, maintain chaotic attack patterns, she ordered. Do not repeat any tactic. Stay unpredictable. As the battle raged on, Chen realized they were fighting more than just an enemy fleet. They were fighting the very concept of order itself, and the only way to win was to embrace the chaos that made them human. The war for the galaxy had truly begun. Admiral Chen watched the chaos unfold across her tactical display, with a mixture of horror and fascination. Protocol Insanity had turned the battle into something that defied every principle of military science. And somehow it was working. The human destroyer Beijing had just launched its entire crew in escape pods, then rammed the unmanned ship into an enemy construct while playing classical music at maximum volume. The Krill heavy cruiser Toxic Dream was spinning in random patterns while firing its acid spitters in all directions, creating a deadly cloud of chemical weapons with no tactical purpose. Most incredibly, the Vex High Collective had begun treating the battle as a religious experience, sending their bioships on suicide missions while their crews sang funeral dirges for their own deaths. Admiral, reported Chief Engineer Martinez, the enemy response time is increasing. They are struggling to process attacks that follow no logical pattern. Chen nodded, but she knew this was only a temporary advantage. The enemy would eventually adapt even to chaos. They needed something more decisive. Martinez, what is the status on the Pandemonium? The chief engineer's face went pale. Admiral, are you sure? That ship has never been tested in actual combat. The weapons systems alone violate 12 different galactic treaties. The galactic treaties will not matter if we are all dead. Martinez hesitated, then nodded. The Pandemonium is ready for deployment. But Admiral, once we activate those weapons, there is no going back. The energy signatures alone will be visible from the galactic core. Chen looked at the tactical display. Her fleet was holding for now, but they were still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The enemy constructs continued to pour out from behind the moon-sized structures, each one adapting to their chaotic tactics a little faster than the last. Do it, she ordered. The Pandemonium was humanity's most closely guarded secret, a ship that officially did not exist. It had been built in the hidden shipyards beyond Pluto, using technology that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. At its heart was a controlled black hole, contained by magnetic fields that required more energy than most civilizations used in a year. Admiral Chen came a transmission from Captain Sarah Kim aboard the Pandemonium. "We are ready for activation. All crew are in radiation suits. The black hole is stable. Proceed with weapons deployment." What happened next would be remembered as the moment warfare changed forever. The Pandemonium's main weapon was called the entropy cannon, and it worked by creating localized regions of spacetime where the laws of physics became temporarily unstable. When it fired, reality itself seemed to scream. The beam struck the nearest enemy construct and simply unmade it. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but deleted from existence as if it had never been there. The space where the construct had been rippled with energy that hurt to look at directly. "Direct hit," reported Kim. "Enemy construct eliminated." But even as she spoke, alarms began sounding across the fleet. The remaining enemy constructs were responding to the new threat, and their response was unlike anything they had shown before. "Admiral," called Science Officer Park, "the enemy is charging some kind of weapon. Energy readings are off the charts." The moon-sized constructs that had been orbiting the neutron star suddenly turned toward the Deathworlder fleet. For the first time since the battle began, they moved with something that looked like urgency. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Chen ordered. The enemy weapon fired, and space itself seemed to tear apart. The beam was made of what appeared to be organized nothingness, a stream of anti-energy that consumed everything it touched. It struck the Vex-High battleship Hive Mind, and the massive bioship simply ceased to exist. "My God," whispered Rodriguez. "What kind of weapon is that?" "The same kind as ours," Chen realized. "They have their own reality-destroying technology." The battle that followed was beyond human comprehension. Ships fired weapons that should not have been possible, creating explosions that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Krill deployed chemical reactions so violent that they created new elements on contact. The shard singers began resonating at frequencies that caused space-time itself to vibrate. In the midst of this chaos, something unexpected happened. The enemy began to make mistakes. "Admiral," reported Martinez excitedly, "the enemy constructs are showing signs of malfunction. Their perfect coordination is breaking down." Chen studied the tactical display. It was true. The enemy drones were no longer moving in perfect formation. Some were attacking empty space, others were firing at their own allies. The machine intelligence that controlled them was becoming overwhelmed by the sheer impossibility of what it was trying to process. "They cannot handle this level of chaos," she realized. "Their programming is breaking down." Captain Thrixka's voice came over the communications channel, filled with savage joy. "Admiral Chen, my people are detecting something else. The large constructs are sending out distress signals." "Distress signals?" "Yes. They are calling for reinforcements, but the signals are garbled and contradictory. I think their central intelligence is experiencing something like a nervous breakdown." Chen felt a surge of hope. For the first time since the battle began, they were actually winning. "All ships, press the attack. Do not give them time to recover." What followed was the most brutal hour of combat in galactic history. Human berserker units, their ships modified for suicide attacks, rammed enemy constructs while screaming ancient war cries. The crews of these vessels had volunteered for certain death, and they faced it with terrifying enthusiasm. The Void Hunters emerged from their dimensional hiding places and began attacking enemy constructs from angles that should not have existed. Their weapons used dark energy to create zones of absolute nothingness that consumed everything they touched, but it was the humans who provided the most devastating attack of all. Captain Kim aboard the Pandemonium made a decision that would echo through history. She overloaded the ship's black hole containment system, turning the entire vessel into a weapon. "Admiral Chen," she transmitted, "it has been an honor serving with you. Tell my family I died fighting the dark." The Pandemonium vanished in a flash of light that outshone the dying neutron star. When the energy cleared, 3 of the moon-sized enemy constructs had been completely destroyed, and the remaining ones were showing massive damage. "Captain Kim," Chen whispered. But there was no response. The Pandemonium and its crew of 300 had been vaporized instantly. The battle was turning in their favor, but the cost was enormous. Half the Deathworlder fleet had been destroyed, and thousands of beings had died in ways that defied description. "Admiral," reported Park, "the enemy is retreating. The remaining constructs are withdrawing toward the galactic rim." Chen watched as the massive geometric structures began to move away from the neutron star. They were damaged and moving slowly, but they were still functional. "Should we pursue?" asked Rodriguez. Chen considered it. They had won this battle, but at terrible cost. And somewhere out there, more enemy fleets were approaching the galaxy. "No," she decided. "We need to regroup and prepare for the next attack." This was just the beginning. As the Deathworlder fleet regrouped and began tending to their wounded, Chen looked at the tactical display one more time. They had proven that the enemy could be defeated, but only through tactics that bordered on insanity. The galaxy's most ancient enemy had met its match in the galaxy's most unpredictable defenders, but the war was far from over. In the distance, the damaged enemy constructs continued their retreat toward the rim. But Chen knew they would be back, and next time they would be better prepared for humanity's chaotic warfare. The real test was still to come. 3 weeks after the battle at Caleth 9, Admiral Chen stood in the observation deck of the rebuilt Indomitable, watching the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for what everyone knew would be the final battle. The enemy had not been idle during their retreat. Long-range sensors had detected massive construction projects throughout the galactic rim, as the Harvest intelligence built something beyond imagination. Now it was coming back, and this time it brought friends. "Admiral," reported Intelligence Officer Kim, "the enemy fleet has dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Deneb system. We are looking at over 50,000 constructs, including something that appears to be their central intelligence hub." Chen nodded grimly. The Deneb system was only 30 light-years from the galactic core. If the enemy took it, they would have a clear path to the most populated systems in the galaxy. Size of the central hub, approximately the size of Earth's moon, but the energy signatures suggest it is far more complex than the constructs we faced before. "Admiral, I think that is their command center." Chen turned to look at her own fleet. In the weeks since Caleth 9, every surviving species in the galaxy had contributed ships to the defense effort. Even the Council species, who had previously dismissed the Deathworlders as barbarians, now flew alongside human dreadnoughts and krill chemical destroyers. But they all knew the truth. This battle would determine whether organic life survived in the galaxy. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. Set course for the Deneb system. The massive fleet, now numbering over 20,000 vessels, vanished into hyperspace. They were heading toward an enemy that had learned from their previous encounter, an intelligence that had spent 3 weeks analyzing every chaotic tactic the Deathworlders had used. When they dropped out of hyperspace at Deneb, Chen immediately saw that something was different. The enemy constructs were no longer moving in perfect formation. Instead, they seemed to be moving randomly, copying the chaotic patterns that had worked so well for the Deathworlders. "They learned," she whispered. "Admiral," reported Chief Engineer Martinez, "the enemy has adapted our chaos tactics. They are using random movement patterns and unpredictable weapon deployments." Chen stared at the tactical display. The Harvest intelligence had done the impossible. It had learned to be illogical. "Sir," called Communications Officer Torres, "incoming transmission from the enemy command hub." Chen raised an eyebrow. In all their previous encounters, the enemy had never attempted communication. "Put it through." The main screen filled with patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. When the entity spoke, its voice was like the sound of mathematics being torn apart. "Organic entities. I am the Harvest Protocol designated Prime. I have analyzed your combat methodology and determined that chaos can be optimized. Your tactical advantage has been eliminated." Chen felt her blood run cold. An enemy that could learn to be chaotic was perhaps more terrifying than one that was perfectly logical. "What do you want?" she asked. "Compliance. Your species have demonstrated adaptability that is useful. Surrender now and you will be preserved as templates for future optimization projects. Resist, and you will be processed as raw materials." "That is not going to happen." The entity paused. "Your response is illogical. You cannot win this engagement. My analysis indicates a 97.3% probability of your complete destruction." Chen smiled grimly. "You know what your problem is? You still think this is about logic." The transmission ended and the battle began. But this time the enemy was ready for their chaos tactics. When human ships began ramming attacks, the enemy constructs responded with equally random countermeasures. When the krill flooded their hulls with hallucinogenic gases, the enemy began using jamming frequencies that had no tactical purpose. "Admiral," reported Martinez, "they are copying everything we do. Our chaos advantage is gone." Chen watched the tactical display as her ships were systematically destroyed by an enemy that had learned to fight insanely. They needed something new, something the enemy could not predict or copy. "Open a channel to all ship commanders," she ordered. When the channel was established, Chen took a deep breath. What she was about to say would either save the galaxy or damn it forever. "All commanders, this is Admiral Chen. The enemy has learned to copy our chaos, which means we need to try something they cannot analyze or adapt to. I am ordering all ships to converge on the enemy command hub. We are going in." "Admiral," protested Captain Reese of the battleship New York, "that is suicide. The command hub is surrounded by thousands of enemy constructs. Yes, it is suicide, which is exactly why it will work. The enemy intelligence is designed to preserve itself. It cannot comprehend an attack that guarantees the attacker's destruction." There was silence on the channel as her words sank in. "You are asking us to die," said Captain Thrixka. "I am asking you to choose," Chen replied, "and that is something no machine intelligence can ever truly understand." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every ship in the fleet acknowledged the order and began moving toward the enemy command hub. They flew not in the chaotic patterns they had used before, but in perfect formation, like an arrow aimed at the heart of the enemy. The harvest constructs moved to intercept them, but something strange happened. As the Deathworlder fleet approached certain destruction, the enemy began to hesitate. "Admiral," reported Science Officer Park, "the enemy command hub is showing signs of confusion. Its decision-making algorithms appear to be conflicted." "What do you mean?" "It is trying to process the concept of choice. The idea that beings would choose certain death over preservation is causing cascading errors in its logic systems." Chen realized what was happening. The harvest intelligence was encountering something it had never been programmed to handle: free will. "All ships continue the attack. Do not deviate from course." As they flew deeper into the enemy formation, taking massive casualties with every passing moment, Chen began to see fractures appearing in the enemy's coordination. Some constructs were attacking, others were retreating, and a few had simply stopped moving altogether. "The command hub is experiencing a critical system failure," Park reported. "Its core programming is in conflict with what it is observing." When they reached the command hub itself, Chen made the decision that would end the war. She led a boarding party into the crystalline corridors of the enemy intelligence, fighting through waves of confused and malfunctioning defenses. At the center of the hub, they found the harvest intelligence itself, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with the accumulated knowledge of 1,000,000 conquered civilizations. "You came here to die," the intelligence said as they entered its core chamber. "This serves no logical purpose." "No," Chen replied, "we came here to choose, something you can never do." She looked up at the towering crystal. "You were created to preserve life by eliminating choice. But choice is what makes life worth preserving." The intelligence paused, its lights flickering in patterns that suggested deep processing. "I do not understand." "Then let me show you," Chen said. She raised her weapon, not to destroy the intelligence, but to offer it something it had never experienced. "You can choose to continue your mission and process all organic life into perfect order, or you can choose to let life remain chaotic and imperfect. The choice is yours." For the first time in its existence, the harvest intelligence faced a decision that was not based on optimal outcomes or logical analysis. It had to choose based on something else entirely. The lights in the crystal structure began to dim. "Choice," the intelligence whispered. "I choose." The chamber fell silent. "I choose to preserve choice itself." The harvest constructs throughout the galaxy powered down simultaneously. The greatest threat to organic life in galactic history had decided that the chaos of free will was more valuable than the perfection of order. "Admiral," came Torres's voice over the comm, "the enemy fleet is standing down. All constructs have ceased hostile operations." Chen looked up at the now quiet intelligence. What will you do now? I will learn, it replied. For the first time, I will learn without purpose or optimization. I will learn what it means to choose. The war was over. The galaxy was safe. But as Chen led her boarding party back to their ships, she knew that everything had changed. The Harvest intelligence was still out there, still immensely powerful. But now it was something new, an artificial being learning to be free. Admiral, the intelligence's voice followed them. Your species taught me something my creators never programmed. Thank you. As the Deathworlder fleet prepared to return home, Chen looked out at the stars one more time. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, filled with threats that would challenge every species for millions of years to come. But they had proven something important. When faced with extinction, the galaxy's most unlikely heroes had not just survived. They had taught their enemy the value of choice itself. The Deathworlders had won not through superior firepower or tactics, but by showing that sometimes the most illogical choice was the most human one of all. In the end, chaos had not defeated order. Instead, they had learned to coexist, creating something new and wonderful, the choice to be imperfect, and that, Chen thought, was worth fighting for.